Hello, everyone. Topic of today's lecture is presidency in United States of America. When U.S. Constitution was written, there have been idea that this country needs a strong executive. Though, since there have been fear of like monarchy, American presidency is limited by Congress and by courts. If in Congress we have many senators, many members of House of Representatives who are elected, legislative branch has like lots of people who are elected. In executive branch, a person who makes a decision, the only person who is elected is a president, and that person has to get 270 electoral votes. And there are very few qualifications for someone to become president, just 35 years old, natural born citizen. By the way, it doesn't mean you have to be born in United States. It just means like your parents are American citizens. For example, Ted Cruz, he was born in Canada and still he ran for presidency at one point. Important limit on American presidency is power of impeachment, which is in the House, and power of removal from office, which is in the Senate. Impeachment have been implemented many times, removal from office, never. Presidential power has a bunch of aspects where it is somewhat unlimited. Presidential war power. In recent history, American presidents have been able to start military operations and Congress didn't declare war. Executive privilege and powers to issue executive orders. And this is the map of electoral college, how many states have what number of electors. And again, each state has the number of electors based on two members of the Senate and members of House delegation from a particular state. And it changes usually every 10 years after census. The most important limitation on presidential power is ability of Congress to power of the purse in the Congress, because Congress passes appropriation bills, American budget, and sometimes Congress can do impeachment and could try to remove someone from office in the Senate. And I think one of the very serious checks on presidential power is judiciary, since like every single federal district judge, if I remember, there are like more than 90 districts in the United States. Every single federal district judge can block executive order issued by president. So this the power of judiciary over American presidency is quite enormous. This is how process usually runs. Candidates announce the decision to run for office, then caucuses and primaries take place, then they nominate, parties nominate their candidates during conventions. Important thing about conventions, I think up until Kennedy election, conventions have been brokered, which means that delegates have not been bound by like people in their states. After this, current practice is that delegates from states, they're supposed to vote in accordance with the wishes of the people who live in the state, in a particular state, but it wasn't always the case. Then what happens, usually candidates participate in debates, but again, it's a tradition. It's not written in any laws. It's just a tradition by which American politics works. There is election day. Electors, again, elected by people in states, they vote in electoral college, and then Congress counts electoral votes. So if you remember something about January 16th insurrection, when President Trump and his supporters tried to interfere with election, it was on this stage when Congress counted electoral votes. And then finally, inauguration takes place. One of the features of electoral college, it gives more power to states, which means in electoral college, states are more important than people. It depends on like your view on the subject. If you're like big believer in state rights, then you might think electoral college is a good thing. What are some of the issues with electoral college? Since it's kind of complicated and since not many people understand how it works, some people don't participate in elections because they don't quite understand what's going on. Another important problem with electoral college on few occasions in American history, people who won electoral college, they actually lost a popular vote. A couple of examples, Donald Trump and George W. Bush. Actually, more Americans voted for their opponents, Hillary Clinton in one case and Al Gore in another case, but still the other person became president because that other person got more votes in electoral college. And in electoral college, small states and swing states where like Republicans and Democrats are like kind of 50-50, they have basically all the power. States which are consistently blue, consistently red, they don't have much say in electing American presidents because they always are that way. Once you have a president who like took office, he so far as he, again, hopefully someday Americans will elect a female president. So president nominates members of the cabinet, and president nominates about like 900 people in lower level positions who feel important jobs in executive branch of government. And what usually happens, people become like acting, like they have this job like acting secretary or acting something. At once they're approved by Senate, they get like official jobs. Sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes Senate rejects a particular nomination and president has to like rethink and come up with a person who can actually get through Senate confirmation process. And in many cases, let's say in some cases it becomes political. In some cases, liberals or conservatives try to block a particular candidate if they don't like that particular candidate. As with the development of media, presidents got more and more access to public and have been more like able to directly access Americans, like newspapers, not so good, radio, a little bit better, television, and finally social media, when whatever president posts on social media or his communication team posts on social media becomes immediately available to American people. Important thing is since domestic powers of presidents are kind of limited, in many cases, the way they can push for change, most policy change, important and lasting policy change, for the most part, happens through laws. So if presidents are popular, they're able to push through Congress major pieces of legislation. And if their party controls both chambers of Congress, since with political polarization, bipartisan deals don't happen that much. So popularity of a president is an important factor for president to implement policy change. Some things presidents can do without Congress. Obviously, removing, changing the team which works for them, cabinet officials, secretaries, and obviously presidential staff. When Senate is in recess, presidents are able to get appointments without consent of the Senate during recess. Presidents can pardon without conditions, and this topic is kind of controversial, since if we have President Trump again, he might try to pardon himself. Presidents can issue executive orders, executive memoranda trying to direct executive agencies to pursue a particular policy. Interesting thing about executive orders, as you can see, for most of the 19th century, presidents didn't use this kind of authority much. Then it increased dramatically. And I would say since Eisenhower, the number of executive orders decreased, since, as I mentioned before, every single federal district judge can block executive order by president, and Congress under Congressional Review Act has the power to rescind federal regulations. So Congress and judiciary block much of the presidential agenda domestically. When there is a crisis, presidents usually get away with justifying issuing executive orders, and those kind of executive orders, they usually stick around. Another use of authority for presidents are executive agreements reached by heads of states or members of executive branch in different countries, and they are not ratified by Congress. Just for information, there are other types of agreements which do require approval from Congress. They are congressional executive agreements. For that, you will need a majority in House and Senate, and treaties, which require 2/3 in the Senate. And thing is, agreements which are approved by Congress usually have very elaborate procedures from getting out of them, and they tend to be more stable. They tend to last longer. One of the examples of executive agreement which didn't last long was Iran deal made by Obama administration. It was made with Iran to allow more monitoring of Iran nuclear facilities in exchange for lifting some of the sanctions. As soon as President Trump, as Donald Trump became president, he just signed executive order and ended that agreement. It's important, as I mentioned before, since checks on presidential power domestically are very significant. Congress and judiciary system, popularity of the president, ability of president to persuade American public to move in a particular direction is the most important feature of American presidency. Thank you very much.